says, Dear SSM, I was born in the last year to be considered a baby boomer, 1963. I was constantly looked down on in my school days because I was the quote-unquote poor kid in town, and both my parents were alcoholics. However, being constantly derided when young led me to having thick skin, and I learned that my opinion of me was the one that ultimately mattered, and that I could take care of myself and felt like I didn't need anyone. If I wanted something done, I would do it myself. Yeah, people either become worn down by all that, or they become very tough. And I'm sorry you grew up in the circumstances you did, being with both parents that were known to be drunks, and as you said, quote-unquote, the poor kid, get made fun of and all that. Yeah. I already had a cynical outlook on people as a whole, and when I started working behind the bar at a nightclub in the next town over when I was 18 years old, the women I met there reinforced my outlook. Well, nothing to give you a dose of reality than working in a bar or club as a bartender or bar back or something and seeing how people behave. Although I never considered myself that good looking, I believe that a number of women mistook my cynicism for self-confidence. We didn't have the word Chad back then, but that's what I was becoming. It was amazing how many women would take an interest in you, all the way to the bedroom, I might add, when you tell them you weren't going to be around for very long. Yep. Now why is that, guys? Many of you guys may be new here and can't quite figure that out. Because, as I've been saying all along, since probably the beginning, it doesn't make a difference what period of time you're in, whether it's back when he was a young man, many, many decades ago, or back at, 3000 BC in Greece. It doesn't matter. Women do the same things they did back then as they do now. And same thing with men, and we respond to the same things. And guess what? Women that are cheaters like to have guys they can hook up with, but not have to worry that they're going to go blab around town and they're going to call them and try to, or reach out to them in some capacity and try to make a relationship. They know that guy is someone for fun, end of story, never going to hear him again. And so there are women that when they hear things like that, when guys say, this ain't going anywhere, they're thinking, great, I can have my fun on the side, even if they're single, for having that guy to have fun with on the side, or if they're married and they can go cheat on their husbands or boyfriends. Yes, that happens. And he was that guy. Whether he did it knowingly with women that were with men, who knows? And also a lot of single gals just like, why do you think Tinder is so popular? Why do you think a lot of gals want the open relationships or open marriages where they tell the guy, the husband, you've heard these stories, okay, we'll do this, but there'll be no attachments. You're not going to get serious with anyone, because they can have the guy they can go hook up with, have fun, and go back to their lives and not worry about him bothering them, because that's what they want. So this doesn't surprise me in the least. There you go, little lesson here. For the next 4 years, I worked my way from Ohio to California to Maryland, looking for family members that got the hell out of Dodge before me. Doing this was part of my bucket list that I wanted to accomplish by the time I hit 30 years old. Then next to my bucket list was to join the military and go to the UK, which I got to do. Once there, I picked up the name Rogue because I wanted to go somewhere or do something I was quite okay going by myself. You sound a lot like me, man. I've always been a loner. I've always had friends, but people have never been my top priority. And I got picked on and given shit as a kid. I was very cynical at a young age about people and human beings in general, humanity. And yeah, it's like, if I want to do something, I'll go by myself. I'm happy with doing things myself. Let me say that becoming rich was never a priority for me because I sought afterlife experiences, which I managed to fulfill. I sought after, not afterlife experience, life experiences. I parachuted from an airplane at 2,000 feet, learned to ski in Austria and Italy, and in short, accomplished way more than I ever expected. And yes, I have proof. But then again, I also had a couple of broken bones and other injuries, plus everywhere I went, people would tell me, I heard about you. Well, you're living life to the fullest. I got out in 1991 and was able to find work on a small base in the UK, where once again I was working behind a bar, but now at the base club. I was also working as a waiter there during the day while I was trying to get a work permit from the UK government. At this point, my inner cynicism towards women was starting to wane somewhat, although I hadn't yet decided that I wanted a long-term relationship. So this guy's whole life, in his teenage years and 20s, now early 30s, he's just been traveling the world, doing things, experiences, having fun, hooking up, nothing serious. That is until one day, while waiting tables, I saw a young female E2 having lunch with an E6, whom I assumed was her boss. It was not unusual for a NCO-IC to meet with a new member of the team in this manner at the time. I was not assigned to their table, but I made every excuse I could walk over by them and to be able to read her name off her uniform. Each time, though, was a failure. Early in the evening, I was getting ready to leave, and I was kicking myself thinking I was never going to see her again. For God's sakes, dude, it's one chick, and you've had plenty of them, but obviously there's something special about her. As I was walking through the club about to leave for the day, I heard someone shout, "Hey, you!" I looked around, and there she was, sitting among a full table of other enlisted females. I looked around, a hand came up and waved me over to the table and offered me a seat, right across from the young woman whose name I've been trying to desperately see that afternoon. Turns out she was also the one who yelled to get my attention. So obviously she noticed you, and obviously noticed you probably walking over and looking, trying to see her name and stuff like that. I have to admit, that raised a warning flag for me because I thought she might be drunk, and that's a major turnoff for me. I don't care if you drink so long as you're not drunk. A throwback to my parents. It's interesting that you said your parents were alcoholics and you're working in a bar and, being around that all the time. Let me also add that if you don't have better than a room temperature IQ, then I don't care what you look like, the answer is going to be no. My standards got higher as I got older. Good. I can't stand stupid chicks. At this time, I was 28 years old and she was 21. Everything on my bucket list was crossed off and then some. Maybe it was time to be serious. However, I was quite surprised to find out that she was sober, and as I got to know her, that she was normally reserved but upbeat. She was also intelligent, majorly attractive, and mature for her age. My old cynicism did kick in like a self-survival mechanism, and I told her that if she was interested in seeing other guys, that I was okay with that unless we got engaged. I figured if I was going to get hurt by her seeing other people, that I might as well get that over with and done with. Yes, that was the kind of a dick move on my part. Because, understandably, based on your life experience at that point, you assumed that every single chick you met, they were all the same. And let's be honest, guys, by and large, they are the same. However, there are certainly exceptions, as there are exceptions for guys. And gals that don't behave that way. Yeah, she's in the bar or the pub, but she's socializing, but she has her reasons to not be like the rest. At that time, the base would run a once-a-year summer car wash to raise money. As you might guess, only the most attractive female members of the units were asked to volunteer for this, with the understanding that bikini tops and short shorts would be the attire for the day. Please remember, this was some 30 years ago and attitudes were different. She was good-looking enough that twice I had base clowns looking to pick a fight with me because she was going out with me. Those types, huh? I sometimes think this was also due to the "I heard about you" reputation that always followed me, or the fact that simps came to my workplace to drink and get their man on, for lack of a better term. We've been seeing each other for about 6 months when on Sadie Hawkins Day, if you're from Ohio or PA, you know what I'm referring to, and she asked me to marry her by simply looking at me and saying, "Will you?" Here comes the slap, and I said yes, if we could live together for a year first, just to make sure we were compatible. Smack! You were dating how long and she asked you to marry her, and she's the one that asked you? Well, she probably knew darn well you weren't going to ask her. Well, at least you had the good sense to say, let's live together first just to see what you're like. You're going to freak out when I don't put the toilet seat down or something like that. After work that day, I told her we needed to talk. So at about 10 p.m. that evening, she and I sat outside as far as away from anyone else and we could get, and I told her she needs to know who she was getting involved with. So I laid out all my dirty secrets, every nasty thing about me from childhood up until that present day. I gotta wonder, are you doing this? You did this because you're a stand-up guy and thought she deserved to know that, okay, if I'm gonna do this, you need to know all these things because honesty is the best way to go, that type of thing, and you want to know the truth? Or was this some psychological thing like, this ain't going to work out, so I'm going to tell her every dirty little thing I've ever done, and then she'll run away, and then I don't have to, put myself in this position. I got to wonder about that. I figured that didn't scare her off, nothing would. When I finished talking, she decided to return the favor and told me everything about herself. She said she came from a broken home and all she really wanted was peace and someone that really cared about her. Well, let's be honest, guys. Some of the most damaged gals that I've ever met in my life, as well as in these stories I covered, come from broken homes where her dad wasn't around, so she has daddy issues and therefore has to get the attention from every guy she's ever met to make up for the lack of attention from daddy, or who knows. However, there are exceptions where there are gals that came from a lot of turmoil in the house and said, I don't want that in my life. It was miserable growing up. I want a stable, good guy. And it's interesting because this dude came from the same thing too. It says parents are both alcoholics, so I can't imagine what that was like growing up. So he came from a fucked up house, and she came from a fucked up house, and obviously both don't want that. So, I'm being optimistic here, gentlemen. It turned out that it was in fact true. She and I have been together for 33 years so far. How about that? It worked out. She has never asked me for anything extravagant. Not jewelry, not a new house, not a fancy car. She's been happy paying half the bills. When I was out of work, she financially supported me, and I did the same when she was out of work. She has quite literally been the for better or for worse, and in sickness and health poster woman. Bro, that's awesome. You deserve that after what you went through in your childhood. And I think, you went off on the path you did, but nobody can blame you. It doesn't sound like you were a jerk. It's just you were a loner. You had a very cynical attitude towards people, like I do, and nobody can blame you. And you saw what women are like, particularly out in the bars and all that. And so who can blame you? But she came from an effed up background too, and she didn't want that. You clearly didn't want that, and you got together. I think that's great. And right here, her actions have proven that she's been a good one. I'm happy for you. I feel really bad for the younger guys today. When you read their stories, it's like driving past a really gruesome car wreck and not being able to keep from looking. These guys are lucky to have sites like yours to go to. If I might, add a couple suggestions for those looking for a long-term relationship. Now, he's going to go into 10 different things that he has learned over the years, and this guy sounds like he knows his shit, so I'm going to read all of them. Advice for all the relationship guys out there. He says, number 1, looks fade. I'm sure everyone knows what I'm saying. Yes. And men age like Sean Connery, women age like Sean Connery, that type of thing. Or should I say, men can age like Sean Connery. If you don't do anything, take care of yourself. It's interesting when you look at some of these female celebrities, movie stars, whatever you want to call them, how they looked 30 years ago, and they're damn good looking, and you see them nowadays, and it's like, holy crap, I'm sure some of you guys can have an idea what I'm talking about here. And of course, looks are going to fade. But it's interesting when you see a dude, what it looked like when he was in his 20s and 30s, and then when he's out in the 60s, and you know what I mean? 2, don't look for a carbon copy of yourself. Have some things in common and some things you do by yourself. 2 people that constantly spend all day together have nothing interesting to talk about at the end of it. It will also lead to a sense of boredom and distance due to lack of communication. Exactly. I've been in enough fucking relationships, guys, to know this. You got to have some things that common interests you like to do together. You can have different personalities, okay? Opposites attract that, but some common things you like to do, that's important. But also, you got to have your own things you like to do and all that. You can't be joined at the hip all the time. That's not going to work. 3, don't shit in your own backyard. In other words, don't date women that you work with. It was a bad idea even before the Me Too movement, and it's probably worse now. Also see number 2 above. I say all the time, do not date women you work with. Aside from the fact that you're going to be around them all the time, also the fact that it could impact your job, your career, and that's where you earn a paycheck or build your career. It's a terrible idea. Find another chick somewhere else. 4, both parties work unless you have children. I hate to have to include that. I'm referring to any children you have together. Don't raise someone else's kids. Yep. Look, if you don't have kids, there's no reason for her to be at home. Or there's no reason for him to be at home. Both you contribute. 5, separate bank accounts with one joint account for paying the bills. Yes, I've been saying this since day 1. This also means separate credit cards. Your credit card, and she is not also on the credit card account. And she has her credit card, and she's not on the credit card account. And you have your own brokerage account where maybe you hold investments in various funds or individual companies. Same thing with her. And of course, retirements. 6. I knew I couldn't get through videos just by hearing the sirens going off. I think it's... Holy crap, listen to that. It's a fire truck, guys. Not. Some people think I live in the hood. I do not live in the hood. 6. Have a serious discussion about who does what around the house. There's no ongoing recurrence of the phrase, I'll do it tomorrow. If she can't handle responsibility for the small things, don't trust her and don't to do anything else. Yeah, I've lived with girlfriends, and I'm sure many of you guys have, or wives, and yeah, there are chores to be done. Make sure who does what. Usually the guy tends to handle the yard and the garage and the basement and things like that, and fixing shit and everything, or the cars, and she can handle the kitchen and clean the baseboards and vacuuming, whatever. Divvy it up. 7. Look for someone you feel you can have an intelligent conversation with. Remember, a piece of paper is no guarantee. I became a member of Mensa long before I had any degree. Yeah, I can't stand stupid women. I like women that actually have a fucking brain. And when I say brain, I don't mean like she has 19 degrees and then she's trying to, outsmart me all the time. No, just someone that actually is intelligent you have a conversation with. 8. Make sure it's someone you can share a sense of humor with. Every time I leave the house with my wife, she says, be careful, I love you. And just to see if she's listening, I'll respond with something dumb, like ditto, or I'll wear protection. She'll call me a shit, and we both have a good laugh. Not everyone's cup of tea, but you get my point. Yeah, there you go. Listen to this. It sounds like they've been married 33 years, and they still banter. That's great. 9. Agree and stick to the rule of always talk like two mature adults instead of arguing. Agree is something you need to agree to disagree and let the matter drop if possible. If the other person feels like they need to scream, call names, or break things and just leave, you'll never find peace there. Right. Now, this is coming from a guy that his parents were alcoholics. I'm sure there was all sorts of shit like that growing up, and probably in her situation too. Communication is key, gentlemen. You cannot have a functioning relationship without communication. You can talk like adults. Sure, anybody can lose their temper, but there's losing their temper, but then calming themselves down. If you're going to lose your temper, and sometimes it's warranted, walk away, cool off, and have a conversation. And again, remember, this is with someone you actually care about, and they care about you. But if they're not willing to talk or listen, and they got to throw shit and act like a fucking 4-year-old having a temper tantrum, that tells you everything. And number 10, know what you want to accomplish and go for it before even thinking about getting serious about a relationship. I think Smokey Robinson and The Miracles said it best with, you better shop around. He said 1960 Motown. With that, I will sign off, Rogue. There you go, man. And I want to point that, he says here, before you get in a relationship and get serious, take care of all the things you want to take care of in life, in terms of establishing yourself. This is why I say the young guys out there that want to get married and all that one day, your late teens, especially your 20s, that's busting your butt on your grind, your purpose to establish yourself, getting that degree in something sensible, or getting a trade or skills to help you start your career, get on your career, have money put away, do those type of things, some of the things you always want to do, then you can get serious. Yes, I get people typically meet someone they are in a relationship with before all is accomplished, but you get my point. Certainly before you get married, you've got to take care of a lot of things. This rushing to get married super young with no job prospects, no money, all that is nuts. And I definitely recommend you don't do that. But anyhow, guys, that was a good one here. It's a story that ends on a high note. A guy that came from a tough background, and guess what? He had his fun, but then met a great gal who was similar to him, interestingly enough, because she had a tough background too. And they've had a great life together. We need more of this. Believe it or not, I like doing stories with happy endings where you can have a couple get married and actually are happy and good with each other. We need more of that in this world, in this fucked up world here. And I made it clear, look, until the laws start to be actually fair towards men, I'm not a big fan of marriage nowadays, because I just see it as like jumping out of an airplane and without the parachute, or jumping out with the airplane with the parachute, but there's a 60% chance they ain't going to open. Who wants to do that? So until things start to improve in that level, as well as other elements that are going on in the world right now, I don't see it very promising. But I hope that changes one day, because when you can have good marriages, you can have kids being raised in a loving household with mom and dad, and they're going to likely be, a lot better equipped to deal with the world. It's going to be a lot better. But we're in a mess right now. But so it's good to hear a good story where things worked out for two people. So that's awesome. So, sir, I appreciate you writing in. I appreciate your pieces of advice. Your pieces of advice are things that I wholeheartedly agree with and I talk about as well. And I'll keep saying them to hopefully help more and more guys out. Wish you all the best. All right, guys, that's it for today. Be sure to comment down below. Let me know what you think about this. Be sure to like the video, share with your friends, and subscribe. I'll catch you next time.